what I depend on, or what takes place, is that I start to see the logic of light, you know. So what you put down initially is a matter of making little memoranda for yourself. So it's getting into a certain mindset that enables you to do that. Or, controlling the paint, as I said, and manipulating it. I think that really is the only technique you need in painting, is how to control what's happening on the end of the brush. And the rest is all in one's mind. I can make this a little bit lighter, even, to keep the light stronger, so everything looks more lighted. So the more you flatten your values, of course, simplify your values, the more lit up an area will be. All right. Bring that area. Let me get this indication of this other hand in here. See if I can do that. And would be nice to be able to just carve it out of, but I think it's a little too far out. So just indicate. It's always good in painting to be able to carve something out of something. Set up a situation for yourself where, let's see, if this were if this were dry, well, it's not going to matter. But just, let's say you had set up a situation like this, and then coming back with light, you're usually carving with light something, carving something out of something darker with more light. So I'll just toss this, darken this whole thing, just to give you an idea. So you would have a situation like that, and then you would just come back with the light and try to carve the hand out of it in this kind of fashion. So that you'd have the like that, and you can see that how that takes place, where you're carving something out of something else. I think I could have moved it, the whole thing in more, to actually, because otherwise Karen is going to have just a huge thigh, which she doesn't actually have. So this, probably this whole, the drawing here would have to come in like so. That's more like it, drawing-wise. But of course, as I said, the same thing applies, whether you have the drawing right or not. Where you try to get yourself in that position of being able to carve one form out of another, such as in landscape painting, where you carve this, the sky holds out from the tree is a classic example. I mean, even slightly going backwards, it still looks good. So you try, as I said, started to say, you put yourself in a position where you can carve one form out of another form. That's looking better. But I do, getting back to your question, Johnny, I do a lot of layering. you could say that you're putting air into it by layering coolness on top of it, or if you want something to look more lighted, for example, you can feel that you're floating light on top of a surface like that. Those are some of the things that go through my mind when I'm painting. When you're painting successfully, speaking for myself, I reach a state where it doesn't feel so much as that I'm painting with paint, but it actually feels like light or color to me, and that is really a nice state to be in, where everything seems quite magical. It doesn't happen every painting, but it is when it does click in, and it is something that you never know when it's going to happen. You get a sense that you have the painting in the palm of your hand as the expression goes, and that it's painting itself rather than you painting it. It's not something that happens all the time, and you can't ever make it happen. But if you paint a lot, it tends to happen more. And obviously, it hasn't happened in this painting. But as I say, you never know when it's going to click in to place. Comes unbidden. The simpler you can keep your colors and color family, the easier it is. And that, as I was saying before, not really having a handle on the colors and the color family initially made everything much more problematic, so that if you can reduce all the colors in the painting to a very simple scheme, odds on the painting will be much more successful ultimately. That's so good. It's like too late, the Fowler rope. See if I can lengthen it, cheat a little bit on it up there. Yeah, just not, is that noticeably too short? Curses. And I was just going to do the thumb. Much better. Let's do that again. Actually, that is much better. Design-wise. It gives a longer gesture to the arm and and everything. What's nice, you get that one line down to the finger.
how much do you think about anatomy in terms of picking warm and cool colors and making it more subtle?
Well, I do think of, where it's appropriate. For example, one place, that, for example, in here you have a small group of muscles and then, of course, your big quadriceps. So that in here, what I was trying to get was the feeling of this whole group as a separate entity, working back, and then a little more light on the inside of the thigh where, as I say, there's a group of, I don't remember, 3 or 4 muscles in there, that divided by the sartorius, which comes down and wraps around the knee, so that and also in this case, let's say, it helps us kind of lie flat and come around. So that it's, if I'm reading the anatomy and it's useful in a particular way to describe what's happening, I'm seeing it and then trying to assess its place also in the painting. So that you're making a selection. So it's part of the pace of the painting as well, which is why painting is can be so difficult, or is so difficult, is because there's so much stuff going on, not only in what you're painting, but in the way you're painting it, the amount of what you select to put in, to leave out. So you're juggling so many elements, and the more elements, the more things you can keep track of course, the richer the painting becomes. And that's part of it, so that you're reading the painting, you're reading your subject matter, and very quickly, it's not a thought process type of thing, but you're, developmentally, I guess your taste, your judgment is involved for over howsoever many paintings you've done, and deciding what to put in, what to leave out, how much anatomy, how little anatomy, or how to describe it, and so forth. So that painting, I think, can be one of the hardest of all the arts, of all the disciplines, because so much is required of you, and you're out there by yourself, making a judgment or using your taste. Each thing you put down is a matter of your taste. Not only what you select, but as I've just said, how you put it in. So it's very, very, and it doesn't get easier. Plus, all those things, plus the brush, the paint, the medium you're using, the brush pressure, value, color. At least 12 things you're thinking about at one time. And so, talking and painting at the same time is extremely difficult because your mind can't make all those choices while you're speaking. So a demonstration is a different kind of a thing, even though in one sense you may be doing exactly what you would be doing if you were alone in the studio. In another ultimate sense, you can't be because your attention is divided. And since what I've just been saying, painting is so difficult and so demanding, it's virtually impossible to do those things. I have wide angle vision. You're keeping track of anatomy, as you asked, Michael, and also the perspective of the painting. So what I was thinking, like coming down to the legs here, of having it working up a slightly lighter shadow down here, and then giving more contrast. So while it's anatomical, I'm really just thinking in terms of the perspective of the picture plane, to have something much, darker and stronger in a sense as you get closer to the light, since the darkest shadows is closest to the light. So you have all that, and to get a feeling of that going away is to just add a little bit more light, so you get a sense of this whole thing turning and bending back in space, and then again fitting the anatomy, into that kind of situation. So that's in. I don't know if that's strictly thinking of anatomy, but it is relating what you're seeing. Lose some of this focus and let the light just trickle out. So we can get some of that, the background colored air, to get that to bend away into space. Not bad. It's nice when you do something good. You get a suggestion of the knee coming in here. So also, I like to pick up paint from other places and use it, so you get this whole knee area up. And then a nice and the idea is to try to make pieces of paint that look like a knee. And and then you can be as anatomical as you want, afterwards. But my first thought is always to make nice paint. What it's supposed to look like. So the painting takes precedent over everything else. The painting of the paint. And then the anatomy afterwards. So that would trickle out. And then the foot coming back. So the way I see it is, as I say, the light trickling down, just like, and this coming back. And then the foot, wherever the toes are, starting, and then that going backwards towards, would help to have a little more background to play it off there. so you could see. So we just fill up this. So I'm seeing it as a movement. It's nice. Amazing what a little bit of light on the surface does to make everything look a little more lit up. You know, it enhances the light on the leg. Amazing. Just makes it all that much more convincing. Amazing. And it's all so visual. It's just making the eye see stuff. How about that? So getting back to the foot, you have the light on the foot, the toes. And to me, that's going backwards to meet this light coming down up there. So that sequence to me, that kind of abstract sequence is what I see first. And that makes it easier for me to paint it. Seeing it and then making it into something more specific that hopefully will look like a foot at some point. But that's the way my mind works visually, is in abstractions, and then trying to make those abstractions look like the anatomy or the vase or the fruit, whatever it is, afterwards. And so you have the light on the toes, and also at the same time, you have some of this darker. See? And then how to make one toe. all these toes are darker toes, and then the first toe catches a little bit of light on it. Make sure I have the proportion right. Like with run into the same problem as the hand. Getting there. And well, just to make sure. I think it might be a little long, but we should have a little bit of that accent in here. For the drawing. It's a little bit long, but it's the idea that counts. We just make the foot longer. Change your shoe size, Karen. But the idea is what's important. As I said in the very beginning of the tape, it's the thinking, the thought process that's important.